Okay. All right, so I've moved to a different place. I'm hoping that this will work better since I'm closer to the router, but they are doing some construction work outside. So hopefully that won't cause problems with the sound. Okay, so let's go ahead and get, what I want to go ahead and start this hour off with actually is I want to go do, where are you? There it is. All right, I want to go back, I want to go here, and I want to go look at some of those examples from the first two sections, the section 2 and section 3, where we were able to see examples of how these network things go. So, okay, let me do a couple of things first. Okay, let me show you MCLI con show. Okay, now these are two connections that are listed here. This first one is the way that the virtual machine is representing my Ethernet connection. So the way that the virtual machine actually represents Ethernet, I don't actually have an Ethernet cable plugged into this computer, but it establishes a virtual Ethernet connection with my host computer, with the Windows laptop that I'm running. Okay, so that's what that is. Then this bridge thing, I think that is, so in trying to figure out how to create a virtual network so that we could like actually do some of these like SSH things, and I could tell you how to do that, I created a bridge connection in my Oracle VMware settings for this, and I think that's what that is. So I still haven't figured that out, by the way, so I'm still working on it, guys, and I'm hoping that here this week I'll be able to make some progress on that, so that hopefully by the end of the after the exam we'll be able to actually do some of these SSH networking things. Okay, all right. So these are my connections. So let me take a look at what my IP address is. Okay. Now, we have a couple of different ones here. So remember, this is ENP0S3 and VIR-BR0. So the ENP0S3, so this is going to be its IPv4 address, IP address here. And then this is going to be the one for that VIR-BR0 information. Okay. Now, if I wanted to show some information for the different devices, so if I said IP-S, and what I'm doing right now, by the way, is the practice for section 2. So if you want to follow along, I'm in practice for section 2. So if I wanted to show ENP0S3, sorry, not E, Turkish E, English E. Okay, so one other thing I'm gonna point out here as we look at this, at these two different ones, notice that my Ethernet, the received and transmitted bytes and packets are non-zero. I've transmitted some information, I've received some information. The bridge one has all zeros. The bridge one has not had any, and because what it is it's trying to be a bridge network between two virtual machines, and I don't have another virtual machine up, makes sense that no data has been transferred between those two, right? But here, this has been sending out information to my host machine and getting information back from my host machine. I bet if we look at it again, I wonder if those numbers will change. So you notice the numbers have changed, right? The numbers have changed because more information has been sent and received. That makes sense. Okay. If I wanted to see what the routing information, IP route, right? So through that ENP0S3 device to go, I remember what my IP address is. What's my IP address here? The ENP0S3. So my IP address These are for the different devices. So this is my IP address for this device. All right. But for anything going through there is going to go through that location there. What's my IP address for ENP0S3 10.0.2.15? And so anything that goes through 10.0.2, anything that goes through there is going to go through that ENP0S3 device. Okay. Now, what if I wanted to ping? I want to ping. What does it suggest we ping here? It says we need to ping the router. All right, so we want to ping we want to ping this guy right here, right? Ping. Let's just ping a couple of times. Let's not ping a lot, right? So 10.0.2.2. Okay. Notice it comes back pretty quick. I can also, just like before, just like I did with the Windows machine, I can ping that 127.0.0.1. That's me. Really short response time, right? But when I ask myself if I'm here, I get a really short response time saying, yes, I am here. Right? Hopefully you get the same. Right? Also, just like I did before with that Google thing, right? You can ping google.com. Oh, I didn't put in a number of times, so it's just going to keep. Notice I didn't put in a parameter for how many times to ping, so it's just going to keep going and going and going until I do Control C. Okay. Let's see. All right. Also, as far as the configuring the network, let's go ahead and do that one. So now I'm in section 3, the practice, the what's it called? The exercise practice for section 3, chapter 11. NMCLI connections show the connections that we have 2 connections here. Okay. I want you to notice something here, because if I do that ping to go, let me go back to -C3. Okay. So if I ping Google 3 times, right now, I get fairly fast response times. If I ping myself, those 3 times, I get really fast response times, right? Now, if I take that connection, that ENP0S3, that's the one that, remember, connects out to my host computer. Okay. If I take it down, okay, I'm going to drop that connection. So now if I say, show me the connections, show, notice now it's no longer green, right? It's no longer green. It's down. It's a non-active connection. Now, if I try to ping Google again, it doesn't know where that is. If I try to ping myself again, I get those same fast response times. And the reason why is I'm still here, but that connection was not only being used to connect to my host machine, it was also using that host machine to connect out to the internet as well. Okay, so I'm not going to be able to get out to the internet unless I have that connection up. Okay, so I put that up. Now, you see them again. They're both green. If I ping Google again, I get okay, there we go. Yep, if I ping Google again, I get some response times that are slower, it looks like. And it's because well, it looks like I'm on a bad network quality now again. Okay, let's see. Some other things I want to point out from here. Okay, we can add a connection through a device. So if I take an existing device and I say, okay, I want to add a connection in MCLI, add connection name, static. Let's call it, let's do it that EMP one, EMP 0S3. IF name EMP0S3. Type. We're going to do another Ethernet one. Okay. We're going to give it a specific IP address. Let's give it the same one as in the text, 172.25.11/24. Give it the same gateway as in the text, 172.25.1.254. By the way, the X is if you are on a specific server 1, server 2, server 3, which student you would be if you were taking this course through Red Hat. Okay. IF name should be all one word. Okay, so we added a new connection. Good. All right. We want to mod our static E0S3 S 172.25.254.254. Okay. We want to view our connections again. Let's view our connections. Notice our new one is inactive. We were to say show us only the active connections, we would not see that one there, right? So now we want to activate it. We want to con up static EMP3. Okay. So now it's activated. So now if we look at our connections, notice here on this device, right, on this EMP03, we're only allowed to have one connection through that device that's active at a time. Okay. So basically, if this were like a Wi-Fi router, we can only connect one connection to that device from our device. Okay. So if we wanted to say, okay, what's our IP address? Notice it's now this IP address of what I established it to be, right? Isn't that what I told it to be? Yep, right there, right? Oh, I did 25 instead of 24. Notice this. It's not 255 over here, is it? I messed that up, didn't I? Oh, we can't have an IP address like that. All right, so we need to delete that connection. So let's do in MCLI con up. Let's do the other one. EMP 0S3, the main one. Okay. Now if we see what are our connections, this one's now inactive now. And if we show what's our IP address for that device, notice it's now a different IP address. Okay. So because I made a bad connection over here, oh, that was not, it shouldn't have been 25, it should have been 24, right? Did I do that wrong? Did I type that wrong? Where was it? Yep, look at that. I typed a 25 instead of a 24. All right. Well, this actually affords me a good chance to show you this then. So we want to remove that connection. So instead of adding, we're going to delete the static dash EMP0 S3. Okay, and now when we look at all of our connections, that one is gone. Okay, so and basically this is like how these IP addresses by how these IP addresses work is that IP addresses are also used to determine where you are, like physically, geographically. So those of you, if you've ever used a VPN to connect to another somewhere, then that's because basically what has happened is it's given your device a different IP address than it geographically is actually in. Yeah. And so basically, like some things like say if like a YouTube video that is only available in certain places. So like for example, a friend of mine sent me a comedic YouTube video the other day, and I was able to watch it here because it's if you know the show Saturday Night Live, it's an NBC show in America, and I was able to watch it here because I live in Turkey, but my friend in America is not allowed to watch it because that company, that Saturday Night Live restricts who can view their YouTube videos based on geography. So, so basically, if he were to use a VPN and say, hey, the computer I'm on is actually in Turkey, not in America, he would actually be allowed to watch that video. So, okay, let's see. So that finishes off the discussion on those first 3 sections. Let's talk a little bit. Let's move on. All right. So if we want to edit our network configuration files, all right. Don't change network configuration information, not by that nmcli command, but by also working with the configuration files. So if we look at this IFCFG options, we can have what the IP address is, what the gateway is, for static stuff. For dynamic, it will create these IP addresses and gateways automatically, and so some of the other information that was on for both. Okay. All right. So again, we can take a connection down. We can put a connection up. Okay. So after we modify the configuration file, we'll need to reload to that the connection. It's kind of like we talked about this, the daemon, right? Or the daemon, however you want to pronounce it. You can, when you make a change. Did I start the recording on this? I don't think I did. Oh, I did. Oh, good. I remembered. Okay. What was I saying? Whenever we make a configuration change, we have to reload the service in order to make the new configuration changes take effect. And then we also need to take down the connection and restart it again to make sure those new changes take effect. All right. I will go ahead and go through this example with you guys so that you can see how we can change our configuration file, how we can change our information. Okay. We will look through this example. We will look through this example in just a moment. Okay, because this is an important one that I want you to be able to understand. All right. So let's for now move on. Okay. We can also change the host name of a system. Okay. So let's say, for example, we just use the host name command. We can see what our host is, what we are called. Okay. For those of you who are running a virtual machine like I am, it defaults to localhost. So your host name will be localhost for this. Okay. We can use that hostname control command to modify that information. So we can set the host name to something else. Okay. So we can set host name to be something else. Right. Okay. All right. So we'll show that in just a moment. Some other information, name server would be the IP address of the server, of the name server out there, the domain server. Okay. And this is not as important, so this whole section. Okay, if we can also use the host command to be able to find out what the IP address of a separate server would be. So host with a server name with another device name can tell us what its IP address is, and then we can do it in reverse as well. So if we know the domain, if we know the host name, we can find out what its address is. If we know what the address is, we can find out what its name is. Okay. All right. I think one more. Okay. All right. And then we'll also go through that with the practice here to see how to change the host name. And I'm actually just now realizing, I bet this is what I need to do to be able to get that SSH stuff working. All right. So let's go back. We'll go back to this editing network configuration files. I will switch over to sharing the virtual machine again, so you guys can see this in action. Okay, let's clear out of this. Okay, let's see here. Okay, so the first thing we want to do, let's take a look at what this, let's see. Let's switch over into the root user because I think everything that we do now is going to require root access. Okay. Okay, that's what we needed. Okay, so I need this file right here. Okay, so what we're going to do is, if you look through the example, the practice, this is section 4. This is chapter 11, section 4, if you're following along. So what we want to do is, let's actually do this. Let's do cat. Okay. So what we can see here is, where are you? Okay, so it's DHCP. I need to create a static connection. Let me go back and create my static. Let me do this. Let's go back up. I want to add this static connection again, but I just realized it's back in my student stuff here. Hold on. That's what I want. All right, that's what I wanted to do. All right. Okay. Let's see. Let's go back and that's what I want. Okay, so I want the static connection. By the way, you'll notice here that for each connection there, you have this IFCFG file, this IF's config file with the name of the connection, not the name of the device, the name of the connection. So I have a connection for this. I also have a connection for this. Okay, and this is the one that I want to mess with because this is the static one, right? Yeah, see, this has an IP address. That's what I want. Okay. Whew. Okay, I was trying to figure all this on. Now, there's multiple ways that we can add an IP address, right? So if we go back, if we go back to the configuring the network with NMCLI, we can add an IP address. We can modify it. That's not it. We can add an IP address using the NMCLI, using the NMCLI mod, right? Where are you? Okay, with that plus, right? If we wanted, we can do this with NMCLI, con mod static np0s3, and I want to add an IPv4 dot addresses, and I want to make it, let's say 10.10.10.10/16. Okay, that's an example in the example in the text. So now if I look at this again, now notice here I have a new IP address here, right? It was added. I could do that again. I could do instead of 10.10.10.10, I could do 20, 20, 20, 20, and instead of 16, 24. Now if I look at it there, now look, now I've got this IP address 1, IP address 2. I can add IP addresses through the NMCLI command. I can also add it by directly changing the configuration file. And that's what we're doing here now, editing network configuration files. Now, obviously, in the example here, it shows IP address 1. That's what would have happened had I done this here, okay? That's what would have happened if I had done that here. Okay. But instead, now I'm going to echo IP ADDR. Instead of 1, now I've got to do 3 because there's already a 1 and a 2 now that I've added. Okay, and I can say that is, in the example in the text, it's 10.0.1.1. Okay, and I'll see sys config / network scripts, and I want IP CFG static. Okay. Now I'm going to echo this out to my configuration file. I also need to give it a prefix though, right? I also need to give it the prefix of something. Prefix and we'll do the same one as in the text. We'll do 24. Okay. Now if I cat the file now, notice here's my my IP address 3 and my prefix 3. Now, one thing I want to make sure you notice that we use this append operator, right? If you don't do append, if you do just a single equal sign, you're going to end up in a big problem, right? So make sure we do the right one. Okay. All right. So now I want to reload. My connection. I need to take my connection down, static dash emp 0s3. I want to bring it down. Oh, never mind. Just need to bring it up. I guess. Oh, it wasn't the active connection as it was. Okay. Up. Okay. And now let's take a look at what our situation is. Okay. Let's take a look at our connection. All right. Notice it's got a bunch of IP addresses, doesn't it? Wow. It's got a bunch of IP addresses. These are all the ones that I added. Right? Okay. So we've got a bunch of possible addresses that we could use to get through this connection. Okay. All right. Now, what's our next thing that it wants us to do? Can we already do this? Oh, okay. This is on desktop. Okay, so it's the same thing. All right. It's the same thing twice. It's just on two different locations we're doing it. Okay. We're switching which location we're at. Ah, I see. Okay. We'll have to do that once a network is established, which hopefully I can have that done sooner rather than later. All right, so that concludes the section 1, 2, 3, 4. Now one more section, and then we'll take a break and we'll talk about the exam in the third hour. Okay, so we're going to talk through, hopefully, changing our host name. So host name is localhost, local domain. Okay, so if we could say, okay, what is host name status? So this is our static host name and some other information here. Okay. Now we want to set our host name to be something else. We want it to be, let's see, host name control, set host name to be, we'll say Octanes CSE dot, you can say local domain. Okay, now let's see what's our host name control status. Our host name is now something else. Yay, that's what we wanted. All right. So cat, let's see. All right. There it is. If we see what is our host name, Optimum CSE, local domain. So far, so good. Okay. Again, we looked at the status. We already did that. And then let's see. We can temporarily change our host name as well. So let's say host name, test name. Now what's our host name? Test name. But if we say, what is the configuration file say our host name is, it's something else. Okay, this is similar to that UMask thing we did earlier in the UMask thing that we did earlier in the course, where we temporarily changed the UMask, but we didn't change it in the configuration file. Okay. The rest of this, I think, needs to wait until I'm actually able to set up the network as necessary. So we won't do anything more here. What we'll do is we'll go ahead and take our break quite a bit early. It's 11:07. So at 11:20, so let me get out of here. So like actually here now, watch if I see what is the host name now. And it's, let's see. Let me try one more. Try pulling it back up. I guess it is still temporarily. I guess I need to reload, restart the system in order for the change, in order to go back to the original host name. Okay, so we'll take our break now. It's 11:07 right before 11:10. So 11:20, we will come back and I will prepare you guys as best I can for the upcoming exam. All right. Thank you guys. I will see you in 13 minutes.